I'm going to be talking about motivation, classroom management, and assessment. There are many different theories for motivation. That includes the theoretical views of motivation, which are the behaviorist theories, cognitive theories, the sociocultural theories, and the humanistic theories. Then there's also the motivational zone of proximal development, which is the in-between what a learner can do and what they cannot do. There's also the conceptual framework for motivation, which is needs, belief, goals, interest, and emotions. There's also Maslow's hierarchy of need, which are psychological needs, safety and security, loving and belonging, self-esteem, and self-actualization. There's also the influence of beliefs and emotions, which are expectations, mindsets, self-efficiency, beliefs about values, and attributions. You can also promote motivation in students by giving them a challenge, autonomy, a choice, arouse curiosity in them, involve fantasy, and getting to know the students and their interests. There's also many different ways to include to motivate your students in the classroom. Next is classroom management. There are 8 main pieces of classroom management. There's the teacher's presence and report with students, classroom arrangement, expectations and classroom rules, classroom routines and procedures, family communication and engagement, engaging lessons and important curriculum, positive behavior approach, and logistical consequences and continuum of intervention. The teacher's presence and rapport with the students is important because a teacher needs to engage with their students in order to have a relationship with them. This will not only help them learn better but feel more comfortable around the teacher. The classroom arrangement is important because it can affect the student's mood and how a class flows depending on how you arrange the classroom. The expectations and classroom rules are important because you need to set boundaries with students in order to get any work done. If you don't set permanent boundaries in the beginning, then the students will constantly push against what is there, and they won't know when to stop. The classroom routines and procedures should be regular and consistent and are important because it gives students a routine to get used to, something that's constant. Family communication and engagement is also very important because if there are any problems that are happening in the classroom, the teacher needs to be able to communicate with the family in order to see if there's anything deeper going on. And likewise, if there's anything going on at home, the family should be able to reach out to the teacher in order to tell them so they can accommodate that any needs the student anything the student needs. Also, if the family feels as if the student is struggling with their classwork at home, they can also reach out to the teacher for help. Next, engaging lessons and important curriculum is important so the students are not bored and are interested in what's going on. The teacher should also have a plan on what they're going to be doing for the entire year. The positive behavior approach is important because it will teach students a better way to approach their problems, and it will be a better way of punishment rather than just making them excluding them from something. Lastly, logistical consequences and continuum of intervention are important because having a clear set of consequences for breaking the rules will make your class more orderly, and they'll know exactly what is expected of them, and they'll know exactly what will happen if they do something wrong. Next is assessment. Classroom assessments are the process involved in making decisions about our students' learning progress. It usually includes observations from students' written work, students' answers in class, students' response to homework, their performance on teacher-made and standardized tests, and performance assessments. We assess students in order to increase student learning, motivation, and self-regulation. There are formal and informal versions of assessment. The formal version is using portfolios with rubrics, standardized tests, and performance assessments. The informal are observations, review questions, personal diaries, response journals, response cards, and exit tickets. Now, these are not limited to these, but these are some of them. There's also a formative assessment, which occurs during learning activities and are designed to increase learning. And then there are summative assessments, which occur after the activities and are designed to gauge learning. A formative assessment helps a student learn and practice what they know, while a summative assessment helps assess a student's performance at the end of an instructional period. So a summative assessment would be a test or a quiz. These three topics are very important to learn about and to use in your classroom. By learning about these, you can utilize them better and know more about what you are talking about. Motivation is very useful to learn about, especially because if you don't know how to motivate your students or what motivates them, then you might not get them to do any work or be interested in the topic of the class at all. So it's very important to learn about the different theories and how to motivate your students. Classroom management is also very important because if your class is very rowdy and it's all over the place and it's not very orderly, then you're not going to get any proper work done. If you don't get any work done, obviously the students are not learning anything. So if you don't have a proper grasp on classroom management, then you might never be able to get any work done. Lastly, assessment. It's very important to learn about assessment because there are many different ways of doing it, and you need to know where your students are academically in order to know what to help them with and when to move on. You also need to know what is the best assessment for them, because some students might not be able to test well, but they do very well in class and know what they're talking about, but written tests are just hard for them. So it's very important to learn about the different types of assessments in order to help make accommodations to your students. Next is application. Teachers and students use effective assessments to improve their learning by seeing what exactly they know in their assessment, depending on the grade that they get or how many they get wrong or right. And from that, the student will know what to study more, and the teacher will know what to go over, because if everyone in your class is getting the same thing wrong, then obviously you might have skimmed over it or not done a proper job of teaching it. It's also very important to use assessments properly. I would probably go towards more of seeing what you know after the fact, because as in a summative assessment, because while you are learning something, you don't have a full grasp on it, but afterwards you should know it better. But at the same time, a formative assessment is also very helpful, and going through and looking through your students' work in order to see what they know is very important as well. Motivation and classroom management are also very intertwined. How motivated your students are can depend on your classroom management, depending on how your seating chart is, or how you set up your room, or how orderly and how fun your classroom is. Your students may be more motivated to participate in class, and they may not be as motivated to participate in class. They might also, depending on how they feel about your class and your classroom management, might not even want to study for your class or participate in it at all, and might just sit there and do nothing, which obviously you do not want. By having a good classroom management and making your classroom not only orderly but also fun and engaging, you motivate your students a lot more, and these will help me personally in the future, because I have a hard time connecting the fun and the orderly together. I tend to either lean more towards one or the other. So having a good classroom management and making sure I have a nice balance will help me make sure that my students are properly motivated. I also plan on getting to know my students a lot more, so I can include stuff that they'll like into my lesson plans. For example, if my students love superheroes, maybe I can do a day about superheroes and include different things about superheroes into class. Lastly, our questions and concerns. Personally, I have concerns about how a teacher, specifically myself, might apply the theories that we're learning about in the classroom. Personally, I have a hard time representing what I learn and applying it physically in the real world. But especially with classroom management, because as I said earlier, I have a hard time balancing the fun and the orderly. So learning about that and how to be very specific about that would be very helpful. Which is very concerning for me because since I have a hard time applying things, I want to make sure that my class isn't too rowdy, but at the same time is very fun and knows exactly what they're supposed to do and what exactly is expected of them. I've seen many examples of this from different teachers throughout the year, so I hope to be able to pull examples from them and use my knowledge from the past. But it's still a concern because applying things has always been a problem for myself. Another concern for me is motivation. I also have a hard time connecting with people, and but I have been working on that. But with motivation, you have to connect with your students and get to know them a lot more in order to properly motivate them, because you have to know what they like. For example, with a dog might be food motivated or play motivated. So not saying that a student is a dog, but you have to learn exactly what motivates them and what they are interested in order to get the best result out of them. Personally, I was very grade motivated, even though I am a procrastinator. But it was very helpful to have tests and checkpoints from myself in order to get things done and to learn about what I was being taught properly. But I have a lot of concerns about properly motivating students because if you don't do it properly, then they can be unmotivated to do things and completely disinterested in the topic as well, which is a very big problem, specifically if they're not interested because they are not learning and they need to learn in order to learn about the world. Thank you very much.